AKOAKOA. We're going to get started at 5:35, and welcome to all of our participants via the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining in. We're going to start at 5:35. Mahalo nui ohana here in person, community members here in person, and those that are joining us on the vast online room. Aloha.
Hello, Mai. Hello, Mai. Are you folks outside? If you can hear my voice, come inside. Come on the stage.
John Komeji. Mahalo nui. We have House appointee and First Vice Chair, Dr. Noi Noi Wong Wilson. Also present is Mr. Neil Hannes. And we also have Dr. Kalehua Krug, and mahalo for hosting us in Waianae last week, mahalo nui. And then we have, of course, we have the director, the person at the helm of our staff. We have Mr., thank you for going to the next slide, Mr. John DeFries, Executive Director. He's joined by many staff members. And you see 3 of them here. That comprises the entire team, all 4. Mr. Stormont couldn't join us today, but today in the room we have Lloyd Unibasami. Aloha, thank you. And then Pua Ena An. Mahalo nui, thank you. Okay, so now I am going to ask Mr. Komeji, Chair, if he could just say a few more words, and then we're going to get into the part where we're going to share information regarding the 3 topic areas that we're going to cover tonight.
Aloha. I wanted to personally thank each and every one of you for taking time out to join us. The purpose of today's meeting is to get feedback and your input. You're going to find that most of our time is going to be spent in a small group with all of you being to express. We have specific questions we need you to reflect on. But we really, one of our goals is to create a safe space where people with differing opinions can share their opinions. So the most important thing is for us to listen to what you have to say, but it's equally important that you try to listen to each other if you have differing opinions. So again, as Mahina said, you know, you've made a great sacrifice to come here, and we really appreciate this. This is one of 10 meetings that we're going to have across the islands. Next week we go to Maui and Molokai. So we're really excited about hearing what all of you have to say, and we're actually compiling everything that you're saying. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to
hard work to try and design a framework for what it would take to put together a group like this. That resulted in the next step, which is to establish the MAUNA KEA Stewardship and Oversight Authority. And that's what you see in front of you today. So this didn't come without a lot of tears, pain, and anxiety about taking care of one of the most special places for many of us, and that is the Mauna Kea, and particularly her summit areas that many of us consider to be very important, very sacred space. So what this is all about, the series of meetings that was referred to, is our promise that we would come to the community and gather input from you to talk story, to include the mana'o of our communities in the effort to organize and plan and put together a management plan that we will, the most of us anyway in our community, can feel that we can get behind and support. And that's why this is so important, that this management plan, the plans that have to be put together, because we are a state agency, we are established by state of Hawaii, and all the elements that need to go into the plan need to come in this kind of conversation with community and with people like you who feel important, that's important enough that you would leave your comfort of your homes and your ohana time to be here with us. So mahalo again for being here. It's really serious business for you to be here, and we appreciate it very much. So with that, we do have a couple of things that we're going to accomplish tonight, but I'm going to turn the mic over to Neil Hannes, one of our other board members, so he can talk a little bit about our framework.
Mahalo noi noi, and aloha mai kākou. Good to see all of you. Awesome to see all of you, in fact, and it's been that way across the Pai'aina. So when people like Noi Noi getting arrested, when people are spending months away from their ohana and away from their jobs and so forth in protests, when people are fighting contested case hearings and fighting endless litigation that costs a lot of money and a lot of time, something's broken. Now it's okay and it's easy to say something is broken, but you also have to then have an idea of how you're going to fix it, right? And that's where the legislature took the courageous steps in creating, passing Act 255 and creating this body to say, we need to manage this whole situation in a very different way. And here's our theory of change about, okay, what's different about us? First of all, when you see the faces and the names and the roles that are represented on the authority, that's different. Lineal descendants, cultural descendants must be on this authority, people with business background, people with astronomy background, people with land management background. It looked at the expertise necessary to do this job and said, we need to populate the authority with those kinds of skills. And we are honored to be serving as the inaugural board to try and represent and bring those talents together at the table. And we recognize that, hey, if we can't get along, if we can't do it with us, what hope do we have to do it, what chances are we going to do it with a larger community? So it began with us, and I have to say, I'm the junior member of the authority, the latest one appointed, but I got to say, this has been a magnificent board in terms of people sharing information, really respectfully and getting along, trying to unify around a goal. So that's part of the one theory of change is we got to be different. There has to be a different body of governance. Secondly, the MAUNA has to be a stakeholder, not just a parcel. It's not just a place where we do stuff. It has its own interests and its own rights. So what are those? If the MAUNA is culturally and ecologically significant, what are those things and what do we need to do to protect those functions, those roles, and those interests of the MAUNA? So making the MAUNA a stakeholder is kind of key to our work. The third is we got to reach across the Pai'aina and involve people across the state. That's why we're having these meetings. That's why you'll see us, we have an active website where people can engage. We're going to reach out to focus groups to make sure we reach people who don't attend the community meetings so that we hear from all the people that we need to hear from who have an interest in this matter. And so that's engagement. When you get them, when you take their time, as we're taking your time tonight, you better listen. And so trying to really commit ourselves to recording what you have to say, to putting that into the record, and building record upon record. The conversation we are having tonight is not the first conversation about Mauna Kea, and it's not going to be the last. So don't think it's going to end all here, but you make an important contribution to that dialogue. And it's incumbent upon us to build that record and demonstrate how from the working group and all the hearings and meetings that went into the working group to the passage of Act 255 and those hearings to our work now, that we keep listening to the community, recording it, and then trying to act upon it. Now, all the people in this room maybe not agree tonight. And Chair Kameji talked about that, there are disagreements and so forth. And number one, we ought to be respectful, but from our standpoint, when we have to make choices, we should be transparent. And we should tell people what decisions we made, why we made it, what we heard from, who disagreed, and be transparent about those decisions. That's part of our theory of change. And then you know what? If you pass a policy, if you have a regulatory framework, that you need to be consistent. If you tell people they're supposed to decommission a telescope after their POW, after its use is done, you've got to make sure it happens. If people are to be regulated in terms of how many people go up and what their responsibilities are as they go up to the Mauna, you need to regulate that and make sure that we're consistent with that. That's the theory of change that we have, is to lead to a better management. You know, we're not there yet. We got to get all this preliminary work done in order to be ready to act and take on our responsibilities, not jointly but full time, on July 1, 2028. Now, I'm not sure where we are with the slides, but as we think about this, we put this into two sections, the plan into two sections. And I use often navigational voyaging kind of metaphors. We got to see the island first. Where the heck are we going? What is that strategic framework? What's the vision that we have? What are the large strategies that are important? That's on this side. What's our mission, core values, guiding principles, and so forth? So we've drawn from Act 255, we've drawn from the working group to kind of start to draft that and run that out before the community. And once you set that into place and have some kind of aspirational statements to know where you want to go, then you can create the SAIL plan, which is the management framework. Then you know how to regulate people. Then you know how to establish rules that then guide behavior so that it gets us to where we want to go in that aspirational statement. Does that make sense? That's our approach, and thank you for contributing to that tonight. So we're going to ask you various things about, we're supposed to have this aspirational statement that contextualizes, acknowledges, and contextualize unresolved social justice issues that underpin the conservation, preservation, and public use of the Mauna. What are those social justice issues, in your view? Share that with us. When we think about access and carrying capacity, what do you think we ought to be looking at to know when it's too much and when maybe it's okay? So those are the kinds of questions we have, and we thank you for being a part of this process. And let's have fun. Let's enjoy. It's our chance to share mana'o and do something that's really important. Kanawai. Yeah, so again, going back to the working group talked about, if you're going to make the Mauna a stakeholder, one of the things you have to understand is that there are natural cycles. And the Kanawai are beautiful expressions of a recognition by our kupuna that things happen in a very natural way. You know, and you need to recognize and let this go. You intercede or you interfere with that process, you kind of do so at your own risk. Nature will probably ultimately win, and it'll be here long after us if we screw up. But you're best off, you want to optimize well-being in society, recognize those cycles. Some of those cycles are kind of destructive. Some of those cycles are kind of in a time where they're volatile and you need to step back. And some of those cycles then become a time for regeneration. That's when you move in. And that's when you move in a spirit to really support that cycle of life and that cycle of abundance and cycle of health and so forth. So that's been when we go back to core values, that's been in our documents, but you can't learn it from me. Learn it from this Wahine. And we are so blessed to live in a time when the Kanahele family and the Kanakaole family and Dr. Pua Kanahele is here to help guide us. So let's roll tape. Is that, we ready to roll that video? Mahalo.
Hello, Yakakoa Pau. You know, it's a real honor to talk about Kanawai because it's not something we hear about all the time, but it's something that existed for a long time, and it's something that continues to exist because it has to do with this land that we live on. And what we as Hawaiians anyway, should know about this land that we live on. That's what the Kanawais are all about. Kanawai is first and foremost, is called a law, but it's like a code or a decree or a regulation. Any one of those will identify the idea of Kanawai. And the first Kanawai that we're going to talk about is a Kanawai called Ho'okiki Kanawai. Ho'okiki Kanawai. Okay, and Ho'okiki Kanawai is the law of continuum. And so this is about Kanakas, trying to educate Kanakas about what's happening on their land and how they can make their land exist for many generations. So this Kanawai has to do with the law of continuum. And Ho'okiki Kanawai is the idea of Ho'okiki is to let things flow. And if you look around you, what are the things that flows? And one of the things that flow on our land is water. And they focus on water a lot because water is one of our main sources of life, for life. And so the idea of Ho'okiki Kanawai is the idea of allowing or being aware of where water flows. And the other thing that flows is magma. And the great thing about magma and lava is once it comes up, whoosh, 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 and then it flows, it comes up out of the ground, and then it flows down to the ocean. What it does, it gives us land. And we look at it sometimes as being destructive. It is not destructive. It does what it has to do in order for us to have land. And so what the Ho'okiki Kanawai is stay out of its way. Okay, allow it to flow. And then the idea of water that flows, Mauna Kea, the Aokoa of Ka'ohe runs from Hamakua, and it's a small Aokoa, runs from Hamakua to the top of Mauna Kea and over to Mauna Loa. Ka'ohe is bamboo. And the idea of the bamboo and why it's called bamboo, it has to do with water. And between the two mountains catches the most water. And it catches the most water, and this water will go into the earth, go into a bamboo idea of water basins. And then the water will leak out from it very slowly. And so you have all of these water basins between the two mountains. And that's why we have really big rivers in the Hamakua district, because of all the water that flows down freely. So the consciousness of what flows, where it flows, why we should be conscious of it flows, because it gives us life and because it gives us a place to live. And water is what we need for life. And a lot of the water has to do with the two mountains that we live on. Yeah. That's the idea of the continuum. The other Kanawai is Kua'a Kanawai. Kua'a is the burning back, the law of the burning back. Now, the law of the burning back has to do with the gestating of landscape, basically, gestating of landscape. You know, they initially looked at it as, or compared it to an ali'i of very, very high rank. You don't approach the ali'i of very high rank because he is out of reach of everybody. It's the same thing with these land areas, the landscape that we need to hold sacred, or we need to hold like they're going to do a lot of good for us, because these are the land areas that are necessary for our existence. One is, of course, the volcano, and is one of it. The other is places that have marshes and streams and rivers and coral heads and the idea of wet forest, because all of these things help to reproduce what's in there on the land. Coral head, that's things out into the ocean, and a lot of fish go for it. Okay. And the wet is what gives life to more forests. And the streams do the same thing. And so this is the idea of the law of the burning back. So you look for these places and you be sure that you allow these places to maintain itself as it is. The other Kanawai is Kaiokia Kanawai. Kaiokia Kanawai is the law of natural boundaries. Now, this is a law that we as Kanakas need to be aware of. Okay, the law of natural bodies is the law where all of these things that I just talked about, the volcano, the movement of water, and all of that, where they are moving. And what it's saying is that you have to recognize the boundary. So what this is saying, know the boundaries. Know your boundary as a Kanaka and know the boundaries of the land. So Kanawai is all about the environment, all about the land and what the land is doing and where the land is and how the land provides for us. And therefore, our idea of being conscious of it and staying away from places that is not good for us. Okay, the last Kanawai is Ki Hoi Hoi Kanawai. And Ki Hoi Hoi Kanawai is the law of regeneration. And so the law of regeneration is that it's like the first law is the law of continuum. We need to continue our own generation of Kanakas. And we need to see that the generation of the native trees continue. We need to see that the generation of the native birds continue, or the generations of the insects that live in these areas continue because they're the food for the birds. And so we have to be conscious of all of that as natives of the island. And again, these are the 4 laws of the land. And the law of regeneration is that we go out and there is a sense of reciprocation. And the sense of reciprocation is, if you go back to the Kumulipo in the first 2 lines, I was going to say this with the first Kanawai, but I didn't. But with this particular line, the first 2 lines of the Kumulipo, Okeawi kahuli vela kahonua. And when you talk about that, people say, oh, that's when our earth is hot. No, it's talking about the lava. When the lava is hot, it makes our earth hot. Okeawi kahuli lo. And what our earth gets hot like, a lot of steam is coming up. It clouds the sky. Okeawi kukayakakala, it hides the sun. So what it's doing is it's returning water to the space above and turning it into clouds. And eventually what that does is that cloud system will return the water back to us. So there's the whole idea of ki hoi hoi kanabai is the idea of reciprocation, that we give and the land gives back. And so be conscious of the land does give back.
You guys is probably wondering all night, how come they don't go up to the podium? Where the mic stay, huh? No, but aloha ho kako. Mahalo, you can pa ilima for kumu pualani. Kanaka ole kanahele. At this time, I'd like to bring up the facilitators who are going to be facilitating the largest chunk of tonight's discussion. Okay, we have Jamie. Where's Lala? Oh, yeah, Lala's here, and Mahina. Maikai. Who's recording? Oh, yep. There you go. Okay, good. Okay, house. If you haven't been here before, bathroom. There's one that's located just down the hallway, right outside out this door on this side. You will go across. There'll be an open door on that side, or actually, you'll just follow Jamie. You follow Jamie. Jamie, raise your hand. Follow Jamie. That'll be the easiest way. And you'll go across the hall. And the red group, you're going to follow Lala. She's going to take you right down the hall on this side. Before you guys go, though, you guys are welcomed to grab food. Please go ahead and grab food from that area, and you can take it to your room with you. After that, come back inside here. At the ending of this meeting, you'll get a chance to ask any of your burning questions to the SOA members. They're here tonight. There's a bunch of them that are here tonight, and they're ready and willing to answer your questions so that you can get more understanding. Also, this card right here, do you all have this card? This card is going to be the opening activity when you walk into your group rooms. Okay, so you can, what we want you guys to do is fill out, answer the question on the back, and then hold it with you. It'll be part of your opening activity when you go into your breakouts. You guys will share that mana'o that's on here. It'll be your way of introducing yourself to someone else in a room. Then I'm going to come around and I'm going to collect these from you. Okay, I'm going to ask for them back, these very beautiful cards. I'm going to ask for them back, and it's going to become part of an art piece that later on, after all the community meetings are done, that we're going to have and create. But you will go home with a set of 4 cards. You're going to go home with a set of 4 cards tonight, all of them with different images of Mauna Kea on them. Yeah? Anything else? Okay. Yes. Red group. Who's in the red group? Oh, yeah, your group. You have a little dot on your name tag. Yeah. Yeah. Sneaky ass. Put dots on your guys, you know us. Yeah? So all your red dots, you guys will come and follow Lala right over there. Anybody else in the red group? Okay, red group is leaving the station. Next group, we have our green group. If you have a green dot on top of your name tag, okay, follow Jamie. Oh yeah, red is Lala's group. All good, go get them. And then green group is also making their way out. And now all you fun people with the blue group, yeah, I told them. With the blue group, you guys are in this room right here in this corner. Yeah. Green. Out the door, and green is across. Across. What are you? Oh, you guys all green? Okay. Wait, ano here? Wait, ano here? So the hallway over there. Yeah. And then blue group right here. And don't forget to grab me I.
to go through a whole ho'olauna exercise. However, you can get to know someone, perhaps someone new. So, okay, so we're gonna take 2 minutes, 1 minute each person. Mahalo nui. Welcome to those who are joining us online on our YouTube channel, Kalamayau. And right now, you can also participate. We have our manao cards, and the question that we are responding to is, what does pono look like on Mauna Kea? What does pono look like on Mauna Kea? So please go ahead and respond on the YouTube chat. If you'd like to say your name, the aina that cares for you, and then also, what does pono look like on Mauna Kea? You can respond to that question. Okay, another minute. Okay, mahalo. Thank you. Mahalo nui. Hopefully you were able to spend time with someone new. My name again is Mahina Paishana. I have the great honor to support all of you in our conversation for Mauna Kea. I'm joined by Kahi. Aloha. Okay, so we're gonna get straight to it. We have 4 questions this evening with her. And before we go into the first question, I want to let you know that the reason why I'm using a mic is because we get to be the breakout group for which the YouTube channel and our community on YouTube gets to participate. So if at any time if you do not want to participate in the conversation, you don't want your image to be captured, you have 2 choices. You can either go to another group, or you can just listen. And then fill out the survey, because the survey online also has all the questions, the same questions. Okay. What I want to say, that's about it. For grounding etiquette, really, is what we want to do is we want to behave in a way that is that honors our sacred spaces. Yeah. So, however we hold ourselves when we are in sacred places is. We'd like to participate with one another this evening. I can have your permission if we can do that together. Mahalo. Also, another kind of favorite group etiquette or grounding etiquette is share the oxygen. Like, what is that? We all share the oxygen. Share the oxygen or share the mic means we have about 20 people here, or just under 20 individuals with all important mana'o. So if we can just make sure that everyone has a chance to share when they're ready to share. Yeah? Okay, so let's get into it. So as you heard from our authority members, this is important. Three important topics that we're going to cover tonight. Aspirational statement that is going to help surface some of the unresolved social justice issues that needs to be addressed. We're going to dive into access and use, and then finally the application of Kanawai. So Act 255 requires MKSOA, Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, to include an aspirational statement to acknowledge and contextualize unresolved social justice issues that underpin the conservation, preservation, and public use of Mauna Kea. To that end, here's the question at hand. What are some of the social justice issues that are still unresolved and underpin the conservation, preservation, and public use of Mauna Kea? Yep. And so we have 15 minutes to kind of delve into this particular question. Kai, do you have maybe an example when we're preparing for this? Do you have maybe an example of a social justice issue that we've heard?
I think for me, one thing that comes up kind of immediately is how do we treat aina that across the board is, you know, on one side is called conservation. And so what does that mean? It's a little different for perhaps from a cultural perspective, but at the bare minimum, like what does that mean and how are we going to treat Mauna Kea?
Who wants to start? What are some of the social justice issues? We actually did that. We did that already with in pairs. We did that in pairs. Maybe Uncle Neil? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we debriefed and that was a good exercise, but we're gonna evolve from that exercise.
Ola ake ako inoa no kailua kona mai au. I think conservation means different things to different people that serve in different ways. And I think it's important to recognize people's intentions and pahuhopu are when they have that pilina to aina. But to me, I think a big part of what we learned on the Mauna was like you have to create pilina with the aina so that you can actually be a kanaka that functions as a part of your environment. Otherwise, you don't like. I think when like conservation specialists, like they're about the la'au first, a mea nui. But I also think educating the caretakers and the stewards, or the future caretakers and stewards, of who might be taking on that conservation work in a more direct way, that depth because of who they are, where they're from, who they might be bringing with them. I think that's a mea la'a and a mea pahuhopu that I think we should be thinking about and engaging in a more direct manner with a larger community, more of an Akea type approach. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. So everyone should get training, orientation, and support to operate and behave appropriately on Mauna Kea. Mahalo. Yes. Anyone else?
Mapuana Di Silva, no ka oho mai au. I always think that we have to clarify or inform those who look at Mauna Kea from a Western lens. Mauna Kea is Hawaii first. We need to look at her from a Hawaiian perspective and a Hawaiian lens. And, Hawaiian lens is a worldview. We have a worldview in our culture. And I feel like the Western concept is just looking at Mauna Kea as this one isolated wahi. And it's so much more than that. And if they can learn be taught what the Hawaiian viewpoint is and looking through the Hawaiian lens, maybe they'll understand better. I don't know if they'll change, but maybe they'll understand better.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Do you feel like there's competing priorities right now between different interest groups or Mauna Kea?
Absolutely. In my teaching, the difference between Western learning and Hawaiian learning is almost opposite, in conflict all the time. And so when our kids come into Halau, we have to train them how to learn from a Hawaiian perspective with Hawaiian cultural values. They don't, even Hawaiian kids don't come with that naturally.
Anyone else? Thank you for kicking us off, Auntie Mapua and La'a. What else? What other social justice issues? A big one that we heard from Wai'anae is access. Who gets to access? Who gets to decide who gets to access Mauna Kea? I'm just bringing some highlights from last week's meeting. What other social justice issues, if any, need to be addressed? Thank you. Mahalo. Thank you so much. We're going to focus on a particular question, but if you have additional questions, we have some support staff that can have a more in-depth conversation with you. Mahalo. How about on this side of the room or in the back of the room? You know, I used to be a school principal, so I'm not afraid to just please respond.
Aloha nui kako. I'm Lene from Waimanalo. I think of environmental justice and restorative justice for Kanaka as one and the same. And I think of what are people doing with the Aina at this time and what did they promise to do? And if they can't do what they promised to do, then why should they continue to get access? And then also in Kula, we learned that Mauna Kea is now a TCP, traditional cultural property. I think that was 2023. So I'm curious how that will affect the ongoing discussions. It probably should affect that.
Mahalo, great question. Yes, thank you for bringing up questions that be attended to. I also want to mention, so if you don't see your thoughts that are being represented verbatim, it's because we actually have this part of the reason why I'm using this mic is because it's being recorded, and I have an application that is helping me to transcribe these notes. Mahalo. Anyone else? Yes.
Aloha o makana ku'ino. He haumana ao. I'm very much a student and just curious and grateful to be here and opening my mind and my perspective. But from the opening video that we saw, I just want to bring up the law of kua'a. That really sparked something, and that I feel like relates to Mauna Kea and Hawaii in general. I think about these sacred places that are just a playground to tourists, people who come across all the way around the world to experience our most sacred sites unregulated, right? So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Mahalo.
So just to kako tita and anake, I think proper representation too. Yeah, at the level ki'e that represents Mana'awa Kea, I think that's where the board can really come in handy, where we have best practices, whether it's conservation, whether it's astronomy and star guides. Do you represent Hawaii at the highest level? Yeah, and are you incorporating values that prepare the next generation of stewards or the next generation of people that are going to have attachment to the Mauna?
Well stated. Thank you. Any other mana'o? Thank you.
Aloha o tara ko inoa. So much to say. However, I want to bring out the fact that the social justice for me would be the issues still unresolved is from theory and what's written on paper to actual action. In addition to action and everything, it's you there for conservation, like I said, stewardship, and or cultural access. When you looked at the video as well, you know, the things that were said, it's exactly, you know, what she said. And yet, even this structure, and even there's people who have the ike to put into practice what we just heard in the video, is it really being put into practice? The whole structure of this itself goes against everything what was mentioned, what she said, vai and ana. And so just don't even touch it. Don't even go there, not into study. When you look at astronomy, you know, for example, like the Kumu, like Mike Lee, there are cultural practitioners that were able to see and know what was happening in the hoku in the sky without even using these type of machinery up there that ends up desecrating and polluting the aina. So it's all tied into of really respecting the place and space from that traditional mindset. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. And yet, there are multiple uses upon Mauna Kea right now. There's commercial use, there's research use, there's education use, there's cultural access as well. Any thoughts around that? Around how do we manage multiple uses if there's going to be continued access to Mauna Kea? Any thoughts?
I think you establish strong kanawai that specifically governs cultural and sacred places. I think you can take some from the ancient times and create new ones that are, you know, appropriate for today.
Mahalo nui.
Aloha mai kako. Aloha mai kako. Waki kaluhiva. Moko o kakuiheva. Ahapua ka heia. And being that our family has been in the same ahapua for hundreds of years, you know, my opinion is we're all here to give support to the people of that aina. And I think who should have the first and last say is the people from that aina, the Native Hawaiian practitioners from that aina, who still utilize that area with their practices, what they do today. You know, we could all give support to the people of that area, but I think they should be the managers of that area. They should get the say. Even though we have astronomy going on now, to my opinion, that's when the pilgrims came in, we do things for our aina. But still again, before it was the pilgrims came, it was still Hawaiian aina. And we surely think that our people there, who live there, should be the managers of that aina. We should just give input and advice. Mahalo. And another thing is, I don't think anybody should feel that
everybody's needs. We have a space station up in the sky that is self-contained. Every single place on the mountain that is being used could be self-contained. So we don't have any problems with pollution or anything. We also limit the number of people up there, and with the new technologies, we don't even have to have people going up there because electronics will bring the information down. Also, I would like to see a feed from those telescopes projected down so we could all see it every day. Because the keiki are the ones who are going to benefit from this, because they're the ones who are going to be the future astronomers and the ones who are going to be the future ones to teach other children. And so if we can protect the Iwi, and we can have the cultural practitioners be there with them designing the locations, I think we can do it all, and we can all be one big ohana and love it all. So, and again, one last thought is that education is probably the most wonderful thing that our species has ever come across. And what we are going to give up potentially is it's to me it's something that we would be really we would be dying the future generations a huge advantage for the rest of the planet.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the summation of your thoughts is you want to assure equitable education, access to equitable education, equitable access to education. Thank you. Okay, any final thoughts for those who have not yet spoken?
Aloha mai kako. Awau no o hoku kana no he kupa aina au no ai manalo. So mahalo nui for your mana'o. I am an educator myself for the last 30 years. From DOE at the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility to Kamehameha for the last 15 years and now in Kulakaiapuni. So I love education. However, education for mankind at the expense of another OEV people is not acceptable, in my opinion. Pointing to the question at hand that underpin the overall issue is who has authority over Hawaiian lands. That's the one thing that is unresolved. And it calls into question that Mauna Kea is a part of the Ceded Lands Trust meant to benefit Native Hawaiians, Mamua Loa. So while I aloha, personally in my own mana'o, I aloha that we would love education for all. We have to protect what is left and protect our own people from regenerative or from capitalist and extractive practices and perpetuate regenerative practices first. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. So we're going to now go on to access and use. Again, if you in your education handout, if you want to kind of look at more background information regarding the current footprint of access and use, who has ability to access and utilize Mauna Kea, it's in that handout. So as a background to our two questions that we're now going to attend to, Act 255 states that the authority may require an application for all recreational uses. Okay, so the law states that the authority, this authority, may require an application to fees and create guidelines on potential limits by monitoring the social safety and conservation impacts of recreational use over time. You know, an example that many of us are thinking about is the success in Ha'ena, North Shore Kauai, right? Where it is locally governed. There's local organizations that are working in partnership with county and state government, and they're managing their own resources. They're limiting use and access. And the people of that area make daily, weekly observations and adjust their management practices based on kilo. So that's like one working example. So here's a question again. What are some examples of social safety and conservation impacts of recreational use that should be monitored? We have 10 minutes for this question, and then we're going to go to the next question. Who hasn't spoken yet? Over here, over there. Thoughts?
I would say that any activities that impact the mountain negatively should be eliminated totally. Again, having been there a couple of times, there's not much up there for people to do. And past the 9,000 foot level where they have the museum and stuff up there, I don't know why you want to go up there. You know how cold it's been lately? Any of you ever been up on that mountain at night? Oh, I froze to death up there one night. I was only at 6,000 feet. I like to died. And I can't imagine going spending the night on the top of the mountain in the old days. Oh.
So what I heard is any harmful activities that we might ask the question, well, what do we define as harmful activity? I'm a resident of Hawaii Island, and there's a lot of vehicle traffic, sometimes by my own family and friends, that go up when it's snowing. And so there's a lot of conversation around how much snow activity is appropriate. That's an example.
Aloha no again. I watched the whole movement on TV because I was recovering from a broken hip. But my family was up there. My nephews, I had two nephews that stayed there the entire time, one with the security. And how I look at it, the buildings are already there. It should be managed in an appropriate way. And I feel if the community can get together, there's many community organizations right there in that moku. If they could get something going together, something like they have at the NER in Hi'eia, 6 grassroots organizations working together to make it work, and they can manage it. But I still think it should be the people of that moku, of that ahapua, to work on it, to manage it, and we support them. Mahalo.
I really appreciate the example, the concrete example. Other thoughts? Those who have not yet spoken? Perfect. Oh, my ka'iloa.
Aloha o Ilihia Ko'uinoa no Kailua Kona Maiau. I think I know you brought up how it's a lot of, or I think it was either you or you that brought up it's a lot of tourist attraction, and personally it's a sacred place, and I think it should be used and managed or watched to be used for that purpose. Like, I was personally taught and brought up in always giving your ho'olauna, like telling who you are, why you're there, giving a reasoning why you're there, just so the aina knows you and you're not just going there to go take photos and post it on Instagram so all your friends can see, oh, I went to Hawaii. But there to know, oh, what is the cultural background of this place? Why was it used? Why do the Kanaka think it's so important to protect it? And yeah.
Mahalo Ilihia. Do you feel like all folks that are accessing Mauna Kea should participate in some kind of training? Is that what that's what you're telling us?
I don't think it's training. I think it's just more so just like it's as easy as nowadays going on your phone or a laptop and searching up the cultural background on it, or just learning how to say learning how to say your name in Hawaiian, or not even saying your name, maybe just saying your name in English if that's what you need, but just making pilina with the aina and having it so you're not so like you can use it as a way of saying, oh, I didn't know. But if you do know, or if you want to know, it's something that I think everyone who either goes on any of the moku or to any sacred place, I think it would be a lot more fulfilling for them to know about it and feeling fulfilled in having the opportunity to be there.
Aloha. So going back kind of to the first question as well, because it kind of ties into what I have to say about some social injustices, right? So there was plenty of people that spoke out about Mauna Kea when it was happening in 2019 especially, right? Hundreds of thousands of people. And where is our lahui right now to have these conversations, And then I just think that there's a lot of like pilikia within our own like local culture of like, flexing on social media, going up and burning rubber, going up and like, doing this kind of stuff, like, and I definitely think that that should be monitored within our lahui, but also tying back into what Anake said about like having aina, sacred aina be kapu. I think in general, then that means like Mauna Kea should be like locked down to see who actually gets to go through, because like that's like how much carbon emissions is going up into the Mauna when however many cars are going through, you know. Like, so that's just some of my mana'o that I'm like brewing up in my
Yeah, a question that I always have is like, how do we know what effect that we're having with all of the uses? What is the baseline, the current baseline of impact? And then how do we measure whether our management practice is increasing impact or decreasing impact, positive or negative? I'm going to make sure that other people who haven't yet spoken speak first, and then we're going to go to the next question.
Aloha kako, kapolai ula di sava no kailua aho. Not to derail the conversation or anything, but I do just want to say that there is a slight problem with the word recreational for me. Not that I think there's no space for that, but I think the term can be misconstrued or give the wrong impression. And I'm not saying nix it completely, but just to be aware that it sounds like, are we going to be recreational at the temple? Are we going to be recreational? What level of sacred do we hold Mauna Kea? And if so, then what language are we using to describe what we do there?
I'm a retired astronomer. I used to work for UH. And I think it's a very good idea to have monitoring by the people who live on a big island. So it just occurred to me that instead of leaving all of the monitoring to the Mauna Kea Authority, there should be a local group organized to be engaged with monitoring activities on the mountain. Just ordinary citizens, local, a group of ordinary citizens to monitor what's going on the mountain, so they don't have to rely on reports that go to the state or to the Mauna Kea Authority. They can see it for their own, with their own eyes.
Mahalo. If anyone has more mana'o for question 2, we can come back. We have 10 minutes, actually less than 10 minutes for the next question. Act 255 states that the authority may require all individuals accessing Mauna Kea lands to undergo an annual orientation anchored by the authority's guiding operational values and principles. Here's a question. How might the authority provide guidance to ensure that individuals have the information to conduct themselves in an appropriate and pono way on Mauna Kea? I'll repeat it. And the question is also in the back on the slide. How might the authority provide guidance to ensure that individuals have the information to conduct themselves in an appropriate and pono way on Mauna Kea? Those who have not yet spoken first.
How might the authority produce guidance? Well, personally, I think if anyone truly understand Mauna Kea, you wouldn't want to go over there. You wouldn't want to. Recreational, educational, you would know your boundaries is not to go up there. That's simple to me. Wahipana, she's very, very sacred. You do not, like a mama, you do not trample all over your mama. And if we all have our own input, what's used for? It benefits this. We're all looking for a personal gain. So I think we all should put on a Kanaka lens and respect her for who she is and let her be.
Anyone else?
Aloha, my name is Corey. I lived on Hawaii Island for 6 years, and it snowed. And yeah, everybody went up there and boogie boarded down or whatever, but we didn't because of the respect for that aina. And my son went to UH Hilo, and every time we went bypass road, we would stop, give our whole kupu, aloha her, and continue on. But I'm Hawaiian, And I don't feel entitled to go up there. We went during the protests because I wanted my son to see what our kupuna was doing on his behalf, on my behalf, and on my ancestors' behalf. So she's right. I don't feel deserving to go up there. I have no reason to go see that telescope because, yeah, I went to the Bishop Museum and I saw a planetarium through that, and that was enough for me. I don't need to do, go all the way up and do altitude checks. I also used to work for the Sheriff's Division, and I had to book them to fly up there every week or however long they were up there. And it was against my morals and values, but that was my job. And I just prayed every single time for the kupuna that were standing there. And I was also watching it while your state dollars were at work. But yeah, it's really hard. I don't feel entitled to be on the Mauna. And there should be that educational piece that people need to learn, like Hanauma Bay. You can't go to Hanauma Bay without understanding, hula, mapuana, learning from Auntie Mikey. We couldn't just dance a hula. We had to understand what Puamana was about, who it was written about. So there's a lot that we should, as Kanaka, step back and learn. And that's why I'm here. I was telling Neil, guys, I've watched every single one of these meetings from the beginning, and even these talk stories, and you guys are amazing, so mahalo.
I fear that one of the things that we have forgotten to do as Kanaka is to say no. Just no. You don't need a reason. We don't have to explain. We don't have to educate you. This is not for you. No. Let's say no. There is a time to say no. I say no.
Mahalo. We're going to do a rapid round, okay? Like 30 seconds, you have like an idea. Like some of the things that came up when I was helping to facilitate the legislative working group, for example, there was like, we should have a station. So, there's only one access road. So we should have a station so that, all folks have to register in, and and before they register, they have to look at a video of some sort, right? For orientation. Any other specific ideas that you want to leave with the authority to consider? Go with a guide. Mahalo. Any other specific? Rapid fire, quick manao, go with a guide. Limit the amount of people that get to access per day. Maikai, what else? You should require some kind of contribution to Mauna Kea. Mahalo. What else? Need a reason, a stated reason that might be in alignment with Kanaka values. Mahalo. Yes.
To be consulted as well.
Mahalo. Again, like a everyday Kanaka advisory or committee for which folks can be a part of this co-stewardship process. Any other final thoughts? Yes.
Mauna Kea is so sacred to us, and it's also a traditional cultural property now. What about cultural monitors? So not even just guides, but actual cultural monitors that are kupa from the area and can say no.
That know that place. That know that place, perhaps? They have Ike for that place? Anything else? Okay. Yeah.
I think reviving like Humaula Sheep Station and having like the lo'eas of different practices, hunting, kilo, astronomy, and kind of like cross-referencing them through a screening of like, do you mahina ke alo? Mai kaena mai no na kanaka apau. Yeah. I think that would be super good. And I think also, just to kind of touch on what Tita said, when we're talking about monetizing, yeah, like monetizing ceded lands, like those are crown lands, yeah. So like even getting proper representation amongst that group that might be, it's kind of like the reefs, yeah, like how like not anybody can just lifeguard and do that stuff. You have to be certified, you have to know what you're doing, you have to know those areas, kind of like that, but on the Mauna.
Certification process, yes. Mahalo. Okay, here's the final question. We actually went a little bit long, so we only have 10 minutes for this question. This is around Indigenous Placed Informed Frameworks Intelligence, so the kanawai that Antipua talked about. Act 255 requires MKSOA to incorporate Indigenous management and cultural processes and values. So here's the question. Fourth question. After learning about kanawai, natural laws, and examples of how they guide stewardship and ecosystem management, go back. Go back. After learning about kanawai and examples of how they guide stewardship and ecosystem management, what are some examples of places or times on Mauna Kea where kanawai are at work, right? There are 4 kanawai. You can also refer to them in your strategic framework as well as in the education handout. What kind of examples? Yeah.
I would say all times, and then also kind of also watch out for the word certification, because that has a lot of connotation. Kanaka Ike versus the fake state certification process, just like with the midwifery type of thing, yeah?
So kanawai are at work all the time. You observe that they are at work all the time. And so knowing the kanawai, understanding the kanawai, coming into relationship with the science of kanawai helps us to understand then our role, our contribution, or our negative impact upon those natural cycles and systems, yeah? Any other examples? How do we know kanawai? What are some examples of or places where we see kanawai at work? Natural cycles, natural laws at work. Yes, thank you. That's it. Where there's vai, and what was vai doing? Mahalo. What else?
Tree lines that you see on the Mauna. I think that is a natural way of setting guidelines as to what the protocol should be in those areas, yeah, and what type of function should be happening there at what specific times that are. I understand what you mean by certifying, but it's like in observation of the Makaiki season, it's best practice, yeah. We want best practice, so it's like figuring out who are the people that we agree upon as a community and as like a selected governing body to like Mahina Kealo at the highest level of Mauna Kea, yeah.
Mahalo. I've helped to support some of the Lahaina and Kula fire efforts, and there are folks there of Lahaina and Kula that are they are watching the kanawai of the burning back, so they are watching how that particular aina regenerates itself, and they're trying to be mindful in how they plan redevelopment so that the aina can regenerate itself, right? Any other examples? We have what, how many more minutes, Kahi? Less than 5.
And whether we like it or not, it's now world renowned since the movement. So whether we like it or not, we're going to get a lot of tourists. And sometimes tourists leave a bad taste in my mouth, being that I was a tour guide at but today they take advantage. And then we have our own people that, I have so much to offer them, but there's people that think that they're entitled. Nobody's entitled to Mauna Kea. There should be rules written there, and I think that the kupa aina from that aina should be part of the rulemaking. And these rules should be written rules where everybody follows it, including our own people from Hawaii. Because in ancient time, you look at our Hawaiians, I'm not going to go to that ahapua without permission. I'm from Hawaii, I'm not going to even go to Kahalu'u and take something without permission. You ask permission, so we should serve the same respect for the people of that aina. Mahalo.
Mahalo. We only have about 2 or 3 more minutes. I want to ask who might be able to represent this group. Just going to provide highlights when we come back. Thank you for whoever's going to say hiki no, hiki no. How else are kanawai at work?
This is my first meeting with you guys, and I just want to say how impressed I am, how organized you guys are. And I feel like this hui is a representation of ho'okiki, the law of continuum, Kanaka, educating Kanaka, and just being here right now, I just am filled with so much ike that I will take with me and spread on to whoever else I connect with. So, mahalo.
Ho'okiki kanawai. Mahalo. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? You spent so much time at Mauna Kea. Did you see, what are some of the natural cycles that you see at work that really helps to assure the health and integrity of Mauna Kea? What are some of the natural systems?
Oh, I don't have a very specific thing in mind, but I remember driving up the mountain, and it's so beautiful, and being above the clouds. So, and being working up there, you can be really in touch with the environment, and so it was a privilege, and I understand things much differently now than I did 20 or 30 years ago, and I appreciate the concern that people have for the Mauna. And so I agree with pretty much everything people have said here. Yeah.
Yep. Final comments, and anyone who has not yet spoken, I think there are like maybe 2 people in this group. I know who they are, they're on this side.
Okay, 15 seconds. If you want to be able to observe, the kanawai, you have to make sure that the no drilling for water or to study the water on the aquifer of Mauna Kea, and then also no geothermal exploratory drilling neither.
I know you're talking about me. But my name is Kyola. I'm from Waihole Valley. I'm very honored to be here sitting next to my wife, that she's the one teaching me about our Kanakas. And it was a shift in our family that we are following. She's leading the pack right now. Because I think from my generation got lost. We was raised in a Western generation. But now, sitting with her, putting me in spaces, learning about our people, that's why I'm so honored to be here today. Yes. 2019. I got to camp there. It was beautiful.
Okay, final comments to any of the questions. Any final brief comments?
Aloha. My feeling is that Mauna Kea represents a lot of our cultural spaces, our sacred places that are being disrespected even in today's time. So we can learn from the issues at Mauna Kea, but it's prevalent throughout the islands. We have a lot of wahikapu that are not being respected. Even here, right up the road, Haiku Valley, not respected. It's really sad. So I think Mauna Kea represents what is happening throughout the islands.
So how do we assure that all community members accessing Mauna Kea demonstrate success?
Well, it's about exchange of mana, right? So when they go there, they need to be going for a pono reason, with respect for the aina, for the place, for the gods of the place, for the people who are there, and for the people they encounter along the way. So it's about bringing your positive mana and returning home with the mana of the mountain, the mauna.
One conflict I'm seeing constantly with the comments is that we're having trouble fitting Hawaiian perspective into these Western concepts. But I do think that with these conversations, no one's shackled. Like even though we're using these Western concepts, we're like training. The idea of training in the Hawaiian perspective is not just a video. Like it's a lifetime. It's so I think we should just continue to just like bust up these Western ideas and make sure that the Hawaiian perspective is heard, is felt, and is embodied. Mahalo.
Yes, and actually, everybody agrees with you, and that's why it's written into law that it will create, it will support and advance a place-based indigenous value set and framework. Their question is how? How and where? How and where?
Years ago, I used to walk Waikiki Beach as exercise. And I don't know how many times I would run into a tourist who said, "Oh, I thought you folks lived in grass houses and wore grass skirts." You know, the problem that we have is ignorance. Ignorance, ignorance, and ignorance. People, we hear all the time on the news about people who do really stupid things that none of us would consider. Like, why did they do that? Ignorance. And the only way we're going to do that is to education, education, education. And the best way we could do it is to start on, at least for the foreigners, is on the airplanes. They're on there for 5, 6, 7 hours at least. You know, they could watch a 10 or 20-minute video, and we could tell them, you know, about Mauna Kea. We could tell them about different kinds of cultural problems and sensitivities that we have here, so that they don't disrespect it. And our own people need to do the same thing. I mean, how many people you see go dirt biking up really shouldn't be, right? So education, education, and education.
Mahalo.
He talked about the tourism, and I think that one of the rulemaking #1 priorities should be our culture. Culture first. We should incorporate our culture in Western ways, and that should. Today, everything has to be written. In our ancient time, we didn't have to write anything down, but today, to make it understandable, you got to write it, and it's the rules that should be followed. Mahalo.
I worry sometimes when we write things down that finites the rules. And so they think, you know, it's written, so I follow those rules, so I'm okay. And there is no way you can write everything down and educate somebody who isn't raised being Hawaiian to understand what it is to sit on that mauna for the first 150 days. I was there 75 of those days. I was there as a kupuna when the military was going to come. I was there the night we had 100-mile-an-hour winds. And until you experience that, until you actually defend our ancestor, there's no way that you are going to get everything you need to act appropriately in our sacred spaces. The only way we can allow people to even visit, and I say no recreation, to visit is to have somebody with that perspective who understands, who's been there, who knows what it's like for that mauna to make you so small that you know your life can be gone in a second. And until you have those experiences, there's nothing that's going to explain it, so you know. In hula, I liken it to uniki.
For those who've been through Uniki, they know exactly what it's about. And there's no way going through it, even with your closest, your own child, you cannot explain that experience without going through it. And that's what the Mauna is to us. That's what these sacred spaces are to us. Why should we have to compromise who we are and what we do and what we believe and what we want to protect for the rest of the world? Let's say no.
Anakala, I like how you say education is a very key detail. Education is really important, but it's like the same thing as telling, like not calling adults or teens children, but it's like going up to a 5-year-old and saying, don't touch the stove, it's hot. But curiosity and ignorance is what leads them to do that. So yeah, a 10, 20-minute video may have it in their minds, but it's like the same thing. Signs on beaches saying, don't go near the turtles. Every video I see on like YouTube, anywhere, always people walking up, touching the turtles, invading their privacy. Like Anake said, it's really hard, even for Hawaiian children. Like many have said, dirt biking, there's no respect usually, and it just needs to be taught through a Kanaka lens. So again, those experiences, knowing what it's like to hear the people around you and how it's affecting them, and not just a video from Hawaiian Airlines saying, "Aloha mai kākou." It's more about, for me, it's hearing people from my culture and hearing the way even young Keiki younger than me, saying how it hurts them and their ohana, and that's what changes me. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. And no dig to Hawaiian Airlines, those who might be watching that.
When I worked at the Board of Water Supply for 25 years, and my job was to teach people about water conservation. And we taught generations of young children, you know, first, second, third grade to seventh to high school, about water and about conservation. And it was, you learn in many different ways. You learn from somebody talking to you. You just learn from palapala, something's written down. You learn from being in the environment. And being in the aina teaches you. You learn a lot from being in the place. So sometimes you have to adjust the learning part to the situation. It's not one size fits all. It's going to be a combination of different activities. And wait, 25 years of teaching these kids, in the 1990s, we were able to save 15 million gallons a day just from conservation. And that's because people cared. You teach them from young to old, and they never give up. They never forget.
Again, thanks again for all of the input you provided tonight. Mahina said, we have some time. Do we have any questions? Across our Pai'aina, or in your world travels, have you seen a place that's culturally or spiritually significant that was, where they were doing some things right? They had protocols, they had tools, they had processes that we should be looking at as maybe to see if we can learn and get some good examples.
Well, I've been to Uluru, and Uluru in Australia, and that's certainly a sacred place. And I don't know if they're doing it right or not, but they do have some rules that have to be followed, some time limitations, and other things. I just want to say thank you all for letting me be here and listen. I understand my boundary, which is why I haven't said anything, but thank you all.
Let's see if there's anybody else. Anybody else want to share before? Because we only have we'll do rapid fire, okay?
I was just thinking of like personage, and I know in Aotearoa, and then also I think like Pachamama maybe does that. So I don't know how it functions, but now that it's a TCP, let me just keep saying that, we can go that way where she has rights like we have rights.
I think the aha at AKOAKOA was a pretty good example of how to do stewardship. I mean, we don't have that kind of intensive time, but I think it sets the standard of like, where are the OPO that we're looking for that, oh, yeah, come here. Yeah, like, olako kekuleana. So we wanna spot those guys and get them to work with people that are more on the conservation end so that they can have a more direct, intimate relationship that sees each other and aina and can use each other in beneficial ways. But the aha, kane, laua, kanaloa, papahana, mokume, wakia. I mean, all of those things, when you, it's like Anake said, and she highlighted it already, but when you can experience live, oya, koho'opuka, and then it's meaningful.
Last manao.
Like you were saying, there are certain rules, ko'olave, to have a kumu from my kula, and she went, and there's certain ways you have to present yourself to get onto the land, to get onto the aina, and I think that's what's also very important.
Mahalo Makana. You have the last manao. And thank you, Makana. She's a volunteer. I'm going to ask Ilihia if you would join Makana to provide high-level kind of like summation of your folks' group. Just high level, not themes, not analysis, not a synopsis, just what did you folks experience together and some of the high points.
Mahalo. I would have to say Hana Maui is one of the places that have a very specific way of their lifestyle that is close to the ways of our kupuna. Although it is, you know, all of Hawaii is infiltrated by colonization, just because they are so secluded from the rest of the island, and they are closer to like their natural resources. They do operate in a way that resembles how our kupuna lived. Mahalo.
Okay, mahalo to this group. I'm going to ask if you could help me put back the chairs. We also ask if you would please fill this card out, and then we will collect them. If you're Po, we'll collect cards. Mahalo nui for your input, your manao. And if you have to leave, please take lots of food with you. The restrooms are right in the middle. Mahalo. Mahalo nui. No. We have now stay for your the Q&A with the authority.
Aloha kako. Thank you for joining us. We're going to transition right now to our Q&A for our people on our live stream. This is, you can submit your questions in the chat. Stay with us momentarily. We'll be right back. Mahalo.
As you re-enter the room, let's come to the middle section, please. We're going to have our Q&A in the middle section. Mahalo. Grab the mic. Come to the middle section. Mahalo nui. Authority members, thank you. And Mr. DeFries.
How are you?
Good.
I never see you come in, sorry.
No, I came in late.
Okay, everybody, if you guys can come inside, come bring in my eye, come inside. Great. You're the last one.
Mahalo. Please join us. Okay, we're going to start. Mahalo. Aloha, cousin.
Everybody come inside. Anybody in here still have your cards in your hand? You get them. I can collect your guys' cards, the one that you didn't fill out. Mahalo. Just the ones you guys filled out. You're going to get the other one for take home. Oh, mahalo, mahalo. You have yours on. Okay. Ohana walk. You guys get your guys' cards? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hey, so compliant. Awesome. Anybody else? Your cards? And we're going to ask you guys if you guys can come more towards the center because they're right over here. You guys might have a hard time. See, or I'm going to run around with the microphone. Come inside. Come to the middle. There's plenty of seats in the front too. No scared. They're not going to bite. Only if you ask. Okay, hele mai. Noho mai. Okay, AKOAKOA. Ooh, you guys, yeah. You guys are riled up from those group meetings, huh? Huh? Oh, yeah. Who's playing music over there? Oh. I just saw it for the first time over there. Never been. Yeah. In the mall. Safeway, Longs. Okay, I know what I gotta do now. No, Ike. See the things I gotta do to shut you guys up? Jesus. That was a chant written by Antipua Kanehele. Back in the day, one of the first chants I ever learned. Yeah, thank you guys. Now, you have an opportunity to ask any of the questions that you have to the board members and their executive director tonight. Who would like to start us off? Mahina will have the mic, and I'll give mine to the board members.
Mahalo. And when you hear some of our grounding etiquette, when you present your question, maybe we think about it so that we can expand them as much time as we can so that many people can ask their questions. So I'm asking if you're not going to diatribe of mana'o for 5-10 minutes, we'll keep it brief. Mahalo.
Aloha, mahalo, o tarako inoa. I just want to ask this before I head out to the Air Force Remediation Advisory Board. I have just two questions. Can you assure that the drilling on Mauna Kea for the so-called study of water is regulated or maybe does not happen, as well as geothermal exploratory drilling? Because the water and geothermal go together, and it's not only going to be for Mauna Kea, it's for a lot of other mokupuni as well.
So, aloha. Maybe I can respond to that. To be really clear for all of us in the room about which area of the Aina we actually have kuleana for. It's not to say that we don't have concern and aloha for all of Mauna Kea, from the summit all the way to the ocean. And these issues, such as the search for, I don't know, resource, whether it's water or geothermal resources, and proposed on this portions of the lower part of what we consider to be Mauna Kea. That is clearly outside of our jurisdiction. I would say if they try to do such things within our jurisdiction, which is the summit area and the visitor center, very limited space when you look at the Mauna as in its entirety, that would certainly be front and center, not only for the community, but for the authority as well. So all I can do is, like you showed up tonight, and some of the comments in our meeting, in our room was, where's the rest of our people? And hopefully they're watching. And if they're not watching, they have the opportunity to view it later on, because it will be on our website, and people will have. We have to show up, just like you're showing up right now, to have this conversation with us about what's important to you. If it's important to you that the lower summit, the lower slopes, the summit, lower area, not the summit, but the lower slopes of Mauna Kea is important, and there should not be that kind of development, then you need to show up to those meetings as well. Yeah, mahalo for bringing that up.
Can I just build on that? having served on the Water Commission for 8 years before coming out of the Mauna Kea Authority, and also managing 360,000 acres of land for Keli'Ipawahi, our understanding of ahupua'a is not just terrestrial. It goes from heavens to horizon. And that means the heavens are in our jurisdiction. So those drillings that you talk about, they're not. But whatever we can do to ensure the proper function of the rain cycle and that evaporation that lifts those clouds up and causes that cycle, it causes that rain to fall, that is our kuleana. When I've never managed anything at Kamehameha at this altitude, and it's kind of above some of the clouds, but where we were in the clouds, and with temperature rising because of climate change, I'm not sure where that's going, where the cloud's going to end up, but we had Antipua, Kanahele, told us, you know what's your job? Make it rain. How you do that? You plant trees. You plant trees and you take care of that area. So we're not planting a lot of trees up on the summit of Mauna Kea. It doesn't promote that. But whatever we can do to understand that cycle and to foster that cycle, I think is within our kuleana.
Aloha mai kākou vo Eoyuan. And Kalamai came here super late. Kalamai, I came here super late, but based on what I saw and the discussions in the room I was in, there was a lot of talk about having more people show up and have spark more conversations, because things like this is very important. And so I ask, with all of this gathering, people watching and all that, how do we envision a perfect Mauna Kea? And what is currently our one and biggest crossroad to making that happen?
I guess we're on a journey, yeah. So this is the beginning of the journey where we're coming out and asking people for their input, for their manao, for their thoughts. So this is, we intend to come back. As we gather more information, we gather more manao from different segments of the community and come back, and we eventually have to come up with a plan. Right? What is our management plan? What are the rules that we believe should govern Mauna Kea? And we are going to come back and present those plans to all of you to get your input again on something real concrete, that this is what our collective thinking is based upon the input that you give, the focus groups, individual interviews, as well as reliance on the consultants to help us develop those plans.
And I wanted just to add that I don't want the messaging to be that there aren't enough people here tonight. Because I think everybody's voice right now is important, and we are in the initial phase of development of this plan. And once the plan comes out, depending on what it says, there'll be guaranteed further places of interaction and engagement. So this is a good group. I'm happy with it. We are going to listen and take careful concern into what you folks are sharing with us this evening in developing the plan. Yeah.
Hi, I am Chad Taniguchi, and I'm glad to hear you guys are coming back. Do you have the resources to go and not necessarily go to places like Galapagos or Aotearoa, but to invest in best practices where people are using great ways to protect and conserve their precious environment?
Fortunately, the legislature has given us funding. We currently have had funding for $15 million a year. Part of that funding will be used to bring over, currently the University of Hawaii manages the Mauna, and they have 50 some odd people. So we're going to have to bring over those 50. So a large portion of that money is going to be used to pay those people to help us manage the Mauna. But we should have sufficient funds to look at different alternatives. Chad Taniguchi. Chad and I know each other for 50 years. He's a crazy guy that rides his bike over the Pali. Okay, so no hit him.
So thank you. Best practice is important, and so I think understanding those, and some you have to visit, and sometimes you just need to consult and do as much research as we can. And we ask that question in our group, and anybody else who has things, best practices that we should be examining. I really hope you provide us that information. Going back to the other question, I think the number of engagements are important. But ultimately, those engagements are intended to, number one, build understanding and build trust. You know, we've said, you know, especially some people are anxious. They're anxious because of budget cycles or deadlines or whatever, and they want to move ahead of trust. We think that's going to probably result in what happened before. It's not going to create a change paradigm. We've got to go through this process where people feel heard and listened to, and they understand better, and hopefully we break up some of the silos. We are tasked with creating advisory groups, and one of the advisory groups is astronomy. And we looked at this. The go-to is, okay, a bunch of observatories, but we did a lot of celestial observation culturally, and how these groups, that you start to build understanding at that level of interests and different ways of doing things, and ultimately build. So I think cross-pollinating groups by trying to build understanding and education and so forth, so we build more trust in our community.
Hello, Mike. First, I'd like to thank all of you for taking out, you know, the kuleana that was given to you and meeting with the community and trying to plan Mauna Kea for the betterment of our people. But first of all, I've been in the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs for like 64 years now. And for a few years, we had one of the people from Mauna Kea, before all of this protesting started, and his name I think was Kalani Flores. And he tried to explain to the Hawaiians what was happening on Mauna Kea. You know, it was, you know, now the ears are open. But what I'm saying is we talk about practices, and I think we should use the practices of the people of that aina. And when you do your planning and ruling, to make sure that the people from that ahapua'a that practice their practices there in that ahapua'a today, that still do their practices, should be a part of the planning and the ruling for Mauna Kea. And I think because, you know, even though you're working under the state, because I know how DLNR can be, even though you're working under the state, you're going to get a lot of associations and they'll want to be in it. But don't forget the people. The people's voices got to be heard too. Mahalo.
Yeah, we really appreciate that sentiment, and many of our members on the authority are from the island of Hawaii. And you should also know that Kalani Flores is actually one of our consultants that is helping us develop our plan.
I have to, sir, Rocky, I have to say this. There's been a lot of movement of people across the Paina. My brother, Keola Beamer, he lives in Maui now. But I don't mind going to Maui to get his feelings about Mauna Kea, because that brother has feelings about Mauna Kea, being a Beamer and being from Waimea. So, but now he's just, you know, he's somewhere else. And I think we run across that all over the place, that my ohana is from Kohala, but we've been living over here for a generation or two. And so, we extend the courtesy, but ultimately you fall back to the people of place and those roots. But I think it's our determination is to reach out as much as we can, but then go back to Hawaii Island, which is where we'll be our last 6 meetings.
I guess I could use this for the TV or something. Our group was really good, you know, talking about Kanawai, natural laws, etc. But I'd just like to remind everybody in this room that your electricity goes out, water's a heck of a lot more important. You just buy it, that's it. You look at the battle on Maui for the water to be spread where it's supposed to be. Anyway, my question is, you know, the Mauna Kea Stewardship Authority was created for a reason, and we had some really good, but it's also about your concerns of the future for the microscope, the telescope. Is that part of your journey? Is that part of your function? Is that part of your making a decision with the people to say yes or no to this? I heard nothing about that this evening.
Part of is to determine what is the carrying capacity of the MAUNA as it relates to telescopes, so that it is clear to everybody. The law that was passed, Act 255, says specifically that astronomy is, support of astronomy is the public policy of the state of Hawaii. It says that in those terms. So we are not ones to, we cannot override what the legislature and the governor have established as a public policy. Our job is to figure out how to blend all of these different policies, the cultural practices, the policies, the stewardship responsibilities, how we blend all of those to come up with the plan that we talked about. But we start with the idea that Act 255 says that support of astronomy is the state's policy.
I think time for 2 more questions.
Hello, Maikako. I actually was going to ask a question specific to that because the article November 4th, it's, the title is 30-meter telescope planners consider other sites of Mauna Kea, and the subtitle says Governor Josh Green pledges to help with the permitting process for sites where old telescopes have been decommissioned. So my question is around the context. Has the outcome already been determined from the governor's mindset if the article is quoting that? And I'm just quoting the article, yeah.
I cannot speak for the governor. I don't know what the governor stands on the particular issue. So for everyone, what TMT has suggested that at some point they are going to consider moving it to a previously a decommissioned site. You know, since we've been on the board, one of the telescopes have been decommissioned, and TMT is suggesting that they have will move the site to that site. We've had a presentation by TMT, but nothing in detail. Right now, just so you know, our board has no regulatory authority until 2028 as to what exactly happens on the mountain. The primary jurisdiction right now, as we sit here today, up until 2028, is with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Board of Land and Natural Resources, and the University of Hawaii. But nothing will happen until TMT files an application to move the telescope or do something, right? Boards don't act on their own. So that's the current status. You also know that TMT is examining moving to the Canary Islands.
Aloha kako, o ka'ano iwa. Kalamai, you want to answer?
Just to the extent the governor suggested in his communications that there should be a clear process for people who want to do a telescope, I think we are in agreement, yeah, there should be a process. That people should know the rules. To the extent he's promising an answer to the rules before we've even invented them, you know, I think we would say is that's not how we're going to operate.
Aloha. So this question might be kind of off the wall for you folks, but do board members share their dreams with each other? And so what I'm trying to get at, how are primary cultural sources accepted on the board? And Moi Ohane being one of them.
Let me first say that before this process started, she and I didn't know each other at all. So the first question she asked me, like, hey, who are you anyway? So I'm going to let her answer the question, but because she and I talk almost every day now, so I don't know if we sharing the dreams and not responsive to your questions, but I'll let her answer how she feels our authority members are acting.
Aloha. So first of all, authority, because we work under the guise of the state and the requirements of Sunshine Law, we really aren't allowed to sit together in private and just say, oh, what you think, what you think, you know, shall we do them like this? We're not allowed to do that, right? Our decision-making process, as all state boards and authorities, it has to be done in public. And so we have to follow a prescription, a prescribed process. Part of it is this. We have not had the chance to sit together and poll each other. I don't know when, if ever, we're going to do that in private. I don't think so. I think it will be public when that time comes. But our ability to sit together like this with you and have these candid conversations is really important for our process as well, right? The fact that, though, interestingly enough, and it's been said to us a number of times, because we've been having a series of meetings last year and then we're starting again, is this is quite unusual to see a public board or a public authority come to the community like this and just sit in front of you and just talk story. It's not in a structured way, you know, it's not in, we have our monthly meetings and they're kind of prescribed. We have an agenda and, you know, it's like board members as board meetings go. This kind of conversation where we can kind of just talk story with each other, listen, and really listen. And then hopefully all the ears up here are hearing the same thing that my ears are hearing, so that when it comes time for us to make these important decisions, we're well informed. And so, you know, Ka'anoi, I don't know if we can say at this point that we have a collective mana'o. I think what we're saying is our collective mana'o is that we want to make sure we do things the right way, and we'll do it the slow way if that's what it takes to be the right way. And so we want to resist the pressure of making decisions, you know, putting the cart before the horse, or making promises to anybody, any particular developer that, no worry, you get them, we're going to get you your permit. No, that's not happening here. We're the voice of the people, and we have, and we're here because we're the voice of the people. So the only way we're going to be that voice is to hear yours and be able to take it to the table when it's important and when it's the time. So I hope that means something to all of you. Mahalo.
Aloha. Wa'o Kaunuhola, Michael Aniwahome, and I've been hearing the issue that there's not enough people at these meetings. And my question to you is, how can we bring more people to these meetings, and not just online, in person? Just like Uncle Kaunoi said, like, if in person they can hear the voices and feel the emotion of the people here. That's my question.
To me, and I'm gonna let Kalehua talk a little bit about this too, but to me, it's going to start with word of mouth. And the word of mouth is going to be the most important thing, that this was a for real meeting. That you're not here that, hey, you guys should come because they're really trying to listen to you. They're really trying to hear what you have to say. And it's not BS. Because people are not going to come if they think that this is just fake, right? And to kind of emphasize what Auntie Noino is saying, we're trying to do things in a different way. And we're getting heat for doing things in a different way. But if you guys go out and tell people, hey, they're having a meeting, and I went to the last one, and this is for real. We spent 75% of our time, they were listening to us, and they made themselves available to answer your questions, and they want to be transparent. I think that's how we're going to get people to come, right? Because if, like I said, if people think it's BS and you just, you know, going through the motions, well, why go waste my time, right?
I was just going to say donuts, you know. I gotta bring donuts in. I feel really healthy right now. Mahalo ka mea ai. Sorry. Anyway, I think with what when I listened to what Ana Kea was sharing earlier, what we're building right now, we haven't shared a collective mana'o, but we are building a collective na'o, a collective heart as board members, and that's honest, because I feel like even in things, our hopes and dreams show up in our commentary. It's already there. I can hear it from everybody. Even though we haven't formally conversed about it, decided anything about it, or based any of our decisions as a collective yet, they're there. But getting other people here, I think part of it is showing up in this way, like John was talking about, and then word of mouth. But I think down the road, and maybe this is a message I have to remind myself and other members of the authority, is that when we do draft our reports and we codify things, that you can see yourselves in it. You can corroborate that we did listen, because I think that BS aspect of showing up and providing opinion is when we're talking too much at you, and we're trying not to do that. So we're trying to remove all of these barriers from the consciousness of people, allowing themselves to attach and believe in what we're trying to do. But we do have to, when the rubber meets the road, we do have to show up with our reports that have your opinions, your thoughts, and what you shared with us to ensure that we are not wasting your time. Does that make sense? Yeah.
You know, I've been given the responsibility to bring this to a close. To my right are 4 of 12 authority members. The 8 who would be seated to my left are not here tonight, but their thoughts are with us. And so I am, as the executive director, accountable to all 12. Each of us is accountable to our own genealogy, which is comprised of both our ancestry, our ancestors, and our descendants. And collectively, we are accountable to Mauna Kea. So our organizational chart as a state agency is very unique in that sense. I also want to thank the Ohana that welcomed us to your aina, to your place. And the which you presented, Kaneohe, and this side of the island is really overwhelming. And to all of you for making the commitment, not only to attend, but to stay. Each one of the gatherings offers something unique to each one of us. And over the next couple of days and weeks, we're traveling to Molokai and Maui, and we'll probably end up comparing notes. But for me, it was very interesting because the group that I was standing behind had 2 people that both of whom know, but they don't know each other. One is a highly respected kumuhula. The other is a recently retired observatory director on Mauna Kea. As I watched their body language from the back on the subject of the kanawai, the 4 kanawai, and please note that everybody in the world is crazy about the fact that we've committed ourselves to the kanawai, okay? Because you're flying right in the face of regulators and ways in which we have practiced land management for centuries in Hawaii, or mismanaged it, okay? But having said that, it was obvious to me that the kumuhula had a granular understanding of the kanawai and its significance. But I also sensed that the observatory director that was seated next to her kind of got it too. Because in his discipline, he's been watching these cycles in the cosmos. And it took me back to experience I had this past summer where I was invited to join a group that was examining ancient light. Ancient light. that came from 10.5 billion light years away. 1 light year is 5.8 trillion miles. 5.8 trillion times 10.5 billion. Something cataclysmic happened, and we're looking at this light, right? So it altered the way I looked at what these people actually do and are capable of doing, okay? So tonight, watching these two really brought warmth to my heart. On the subject of access, there's no doubt in my mind, because both of these people have aloha for Mauna Kea, shared concerns about the priority of who should access, practitioners, traditional practices need to continue, and anyone entering that realm needs to be prepared, no matter what your discipline is, okay? And when we got to the aspirational statement, my only hope was that at some point we will find a statement that will liberate each one of you individually to always, when you ascend on Mauna Kea for the purpose that is clear to you, that you are bringing the best of yourselves, the best of ourselves, the best in our work, the best in our intentions, and being able to do that. There is no question in my mind, Kumo understands that. There's no question in my mind, the astronomer understood that. So on an evening like this, to be able to share it with a community that welcomed us this way, and to have this special insight into the experience, we all leave here extremely grateful. And as was pointed out by our chair, we will be back, because this is a story that we have to collectively write. And to make that happen, we all need one another. So thank you again for hosting us this evening, and Mahina, this is now coming back to you.
Hiki no, mahalo, mahalo nui. So Kahanu had asked, well, how do we get more people here? There are two ways, actually. So if you have additional mana'o, this survey, please, it's here in the right here on the slide, as well as on our website. All of the questions that we raised tonight are on that survey, with a few more. That way, if more ideas come, more thoughts come to you, and you want to add, please do. The second way, and in the next slide, you're going to see you have ohana, you have friends, perhaps, that are on Maui, and we're going to Maui on the 28th, and then we're going to Molokai the next day, on the 29th. So if you have family, friends that want to know and want to participate in this meeting, please let them know that this is happening. All the information is found on kuawakea.org, kuawakea.org. All of the videos that you've seen and more, all of the handouts that you have in your hands and more. There's an annotated bibliography, so and all the technical studies and archaeological studies and so forth have all been laid out there for our collected knowledge base. And finally, there is so much mea'ai outside, so please take home mea'ai to your ohana. We very much are so grateful to all of you for participating, and we have he mana'o paha e pani ponoai keia halavai.
Yeah, I'm going to ask, we had a beautiful welcoming from Ohana Walk, and I've also asked Kumu Hinale Moana Wong and her Halele Moana to come and close us out this evening, and they would like to share mele with all of you. And as they are coming forward, also like to remind you on that information table are sets of 3 of the cards that you can pick up, take with you. They're nani na ki'i, and they all have some pondering questions on the back that we should consider for all of us. How do you want us, Kum? Standing or sitting or come up? Yeah. And before you guys leave, you guys don't, I know you guys are lovely here on the ko'olau side. You guys are going to want to start putting away chairs. We got to do the opposite. We got to set them back up because they have an event tomorrow. Yeah, so we got to make them like how it was when we first came in. Yeah? You need mic?
Mahalo to the authority. Mahalo kumu mehana for the invitation to come and support this meeting. I can only say that the reason why we came was to offer this leo mele to continue to uplift the spirit of all of you, our fellow Kanaka and Kama'aina, who are a part of this place that we love. And to that end, may the words of this mele, may they resound in your spirit. May they hopefully lift you up if we sing it well. Oh, there you are. I was stalling time. Hi, sister. I see you. The title of it is Hawaii, My Inheritance. And so I leave this mele with you. And I would also say that since I have the mic, to the authority. Just like there are boards, commissions, councils, and there's authorities. And as someone who served on 13 years on a council, there's much to be said for the way we posture and proffer. And when we come from that position of being the rightful leadership, when others in elected positions of leadership are not necessarily those people, may you lean in and lean forward. And for everybody who comes, this process here, although it might seem frustrating, it's critical, because in order for the authority to go forward and say, when they turn around and go back to the people that work in the square building, no matter what floor they're on, it's important that they heard great resonance with the sentiments of the community. And this mechanism can work if you only understand the driving impetus of having this kind of mechanism. But getting into the weeds now. Here we go. Pilimai. We leave this mele for you, and then the second is our pule. It is a pule for long life for all of us. If you know it, please join us.
kana ai ho la mau. Join us. E Hawaii e kuhoili na kuaina. Aloha nui ia e velo malo aku no.
Yep, mahalo, mahalo, everybody. Please drive home safely, but before you do, please grab some food. Help us out. Share with your ohana. Mahalo.